Hi again, everyone, and welcome back to the special Coaches Corner edition of the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. Thank you for joining us across all of our social media platforms. And as always, our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Today on Coaches Corner, our guest is Jen Starek, who is the softball coach here at the University of New Haven. And Dr. Z, what can you tell us about Jen?
You know, Jen is really just a pleasure to work with. I love all coaches. I'm a coach at heart. That's my background. But Jen has this uncanny ability to sort of fit in with the administration as well. So some coaches don't see that as a positive, if I were to say that about them, but I think Jen does. And she's kind of a go-to for me when it comes to other things I need done outside of coaching. I know I can always call her and say, hey, can you help me with this or help me with that? And many of the viewers may not know she actually has a title of assistant athletic director, which was given to her before I got here. But now that I'm here, we're finding unique ways to utilize that. But whether she had the title or not, she just kind of has a knack for being able to get some of those things done, as well as having her strength and conditioning coach certification. So there are times through the pandemic that we've talked about, and I've told Foggy, our strength coach, when you need her, use her in that capacity. And so brings a lot of skills to the table.
Yeah, Jen has a great background, and we look forward to talking to her. So let's bring her out from the green room. Jen is the all-time winningest softball coach in UNH history. She's in her 14th season, which ties her with our lacrosse coach, Jen Fallon, for the longest tenured coach currently right now at the University of New Haven. And Jen, we welcome you to the program. I bring up the longest tenured coach kind of tongue-in-cheek because the two Jens, Fallon and yourself, Coach Fallon has kind of mixed emotions about that title, longest tenured coach. How do you feel about it?
I'd probably agree with her, but we certainly have been here for a long time now. It flew.
I look at that as kind of a badge of honor, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it is.
Well, tell us about your path to UNH. For those who are watching who may not know about your background, give us an idea of who you are, where you came from, and how you arrived at the University of New Haven.
Sure. I grew up in Massachusetts, played two sports in high school, went on to go to Springfield College, which was an excellent decision for me. Did athletic training, and then in my grad work there, I did athletic admin and picked up, as Dr. Z said, my strength and conditioning certification as well. So I played two sports there as well, field hockey and softball. And when I finished, I wanted to keep coaching, so I did a grad work with the softball program, and then worked for a couple of years in some smaller schools in Boston, and then was really lucky to get this job at a pretty young age. I was 25 when I got hired here at New Haven, and it's been great since then.
You know, Jen, my dad and some of the viewers who watch this podcast regularly know some of the history there, was a college professor, an education professor. That I say that with pride because he wasn't an intellectual. He was very practical. And he was always encouraging me to get a broad base of education and skill sets. So you could, if you chose to work in a university, you could do multiple things. You're one of the few people I met who's done a lot of that. Likewise, I mean, athletic training, strength and conditioning, sports administration, two sports. You would be like the cat with 9 lives. You know, you could do things here in a university. I think a lot of young people, I was on a leadership call last night with a national group trying to encourage them to do the same. And I don't know if you share that path or philosophy with your players, but it's not a bad game plan, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, like, even if I didn't do the athletic training or the strength and conditioning totally hands-on, it really just enhances everything that I can do coaching-wise. And even the administrative piece was huge for me to kind of get organized, especially when I moved to a bigger program like this where there's so much to do. So we do talk about it with our student athletes a lot, try to get them involved in different things. We've had some great student athletes in the past couple of years do a lot with the NCAA and take advantage of some of those leadership programs and diversify things like that. So it's been a good experience to share.
You know, J-Dub, one of the things that Coach does in her program that, again, I've only been here a year, but one of my favorite memories was she does a softball breakfast, and time has flown. That was right before your season that then you only had a couple of games and it was over.
Yeah.
But that was so well organized. And I think that every young woman that's been in your programs gone through that for I don't know how many years, but that's really an impressive event, and it sets them up for success in other areas of their life. Can you tell me more about what that day is?
Sure. So we started it when I got here to the University of New Haven. It's a little bit of a fundraiser. I mean, was this initial goal. But what it does is it really does a lot more than that. It allows the student athletes to interact with faculty and staff. So we advertise to people at the school that they can buy a table. Usually it's department heads. Our VPs have been awesome. They all buy tables every year, and then they can bring their staff. There's a little bit of a fun piece. They wear some kind of crazy apron or creative apron, and a lot of them have really gotten into it, and they get their whole staff that they invite to bring it. But when they purchase the table, they serve breakfast too with some of our student athletes. So it's a nice way for them to kind of have a morning with their employees, you know, where they get to be a little more casual. The student athletes get to introduce themselves and interact with a lot of faculty and staff. They get to invite their professors if they want. So it's turned into like a fundraiser, a community service, or community engagement activity. And the funny part is it's very popular. So a lot of the athletes will ask all year, like, when are we coming? What's in the raffle this year? And stuff like that. So it's nice to have an event that everyone looks forward to like that.
You know, it's on the top of my mind, J-Dub, because some part of the event is these little rubber ducks, and you buy those, or I can't even remember now. Well, one of my dogs was running around with one in its mouth the other day, and my wife hadn't moved here yet at that time. I was like, where did you, she thinks her husband's lost his mind and out rubber ducks or something. And, but it goes, I think that's why it's on my mind is I had to explain why the heck I had this little rubber duck with a blue hat the other day. So it's a fun event.
Yeah. Jen, please explain, because I'm curious now. What's the role of the rubber duck with the blue hat, and why does Dr. Z have one?
So that was a new thing. So Summer McGee was one of our guests that bought the table this year, and part of her theme to her outfit was that she had these rubber ducks. So to make a little extra money for the table tips, because that's part of the fundraiser, she was selling some rubber ducks.
Okay. I couldn't remember why. All I know is I had a rubber duck from this event and tried to explain why a 54-year-old man would have a little duck in his possession.
Jen, you recruit some amazing student athletes. They succeed on the field. They succeed in the classroom. When you are out recruiting, who exactly are you looking for to fit into our culture, and how do you get them? How do you convince them to come to the University of New Haven?
So I talk about this a lot, especially at camps. You know, when you go out recruiting, obviously there's a lot of good players and everyone can play softball in college. Well, not everyone, but a lot of them, you know, at these events could easily be great people to bring into our program. But then it goes into a little bit more of the intangibles. You know, we really like to get everyone on campus and make sure that, you know, we get some time to spend with them, talk with them, walk around campus to do the tour with them so that, you know, they kind of relax and you can kind of see what they're interested in, what their personality is going to be like, what they're going to bring to the table, and let them work with the team and be around the team to make sure it's going to be a good fit. And that is for them, you know, because transferring and being unhappy at school is something we don't want, you know, a lot of kids to go through here. And it's for us to make sure that, you know, when we want to bring someone in, they are going to fit in well with the team, and they are exactly what our culture kind of asks for. Because like you said, I've had the pleasure of working with so many great student athletes, and we pride ourselves on them taking control of the leadership and them making good decisions and them bringing the values of the program to each new class and really taking the lead, because I can say everything that I want to say and say this is what we're about, but until they really buy into it and see why it's effective and why the upperclassmen think these things are important, you know, that means so much more to them than what their coaches are just talking about ideally.
You know, just because of the proximity of the softball field, I get to see Coach Starek coach a little more than some of the other coaches, or I interrupt her practices or whatever. And it's you can tell she's got years of experience. The practices, the drills are well run. You know, my last event I got to see a lot of event before the it was a softball game, and was just getting drawn into it, excited about it, and you know, we had to call timeout. And one of the most recent activities I've gotten to see is her drill practice just a couple of days ago.
Coach, what have you been doing in practice? So what do practices look like these days?
So they're definitely a little different. We've been going about two full weeks pretty much at this point. And our main goal, first of all, was kind of just to let them get out there. Kind of ask them what they wanted to do, let them enjoy being outside, let them enjoy being around each other. And, you know, some of them got to play a little bit of softball this summer, but a lot of them didn't get to do what their normal schedule would be like. So instead of, you know, totally getting after it and straight to work, we've tried to let them kind of enjoy what they're doing again. But the unique, I mean, our staff is taking it as a challenge a little bit because of the way the groups are. We have, you know, pitchers and catchers and outfielders and infielders. So we're trying to really find some of the common fundamental basic things that we want each player to know, and making sure that we're starting to drill those and get those into what we're doing. And then using the coaching staff to work with everyone, but it's allowing each player to kind of understand what every other player on the field does, which I think could be a big advantage in terms of, you know, when we put some of our defenses into place, it makes a little more sense to everyone because they know kind of the stuff that everyone's going through.
Coach, in talking with your players, they all say how much you care about them, how well you relate to them. So with that in mind, please tell us your one famous TikTok moment.
So we do a Charger challenge every year. We call it the Iron Challenge. And what it is kind of ends our strength and conditioning in the fall, or ends our non-traditional season part, where we do a bunch of events outside, you know, some sled pushes where they're in different groups. We color them up. So blue team, black team, yellow team, white team, stuff like that. And they do all these kind of fitness challenges. Our strength coach, Monica, does a couple of them with them in the weight room. And we do, so one of them was a towel tug. So there's two towels, one holds the ends of one and they're intertwined with each other. And so Giovanna Hillman is our strongest player on the team that really enjoys the weight room. So at the end, she challenged me, and it didn't last very long. Giovanna would not like me to tell you who won, so I won't. But they TikToked it, and it got quite a lot of views. So as they're making all their videos, I like to continually remind them that I still have more views than them.
How'd you know about that, J-Dub? I didn't.
A Dr. Z, a good reporter, never reveals his sources.
Obviously, he's watching my TikTok.
Yeah.
No, I talked to Coach before we came on. I said that I speak to some of her players. I have some of them in class. She can get there. I have 3 of them, or have had 3. She can guess. She's got a 33% chance of getting it right.
Okay. So we may have to extend this interview because there's other fun things. While we're talking about fun things, Coach has a really cool dog that shows up at practice and doesn't get in the way. Almost gets lined for the drills. I mean, but tell us a little more about your dog.
Sure. Darcy is my black lab mixed dog. She's been with the team probably 8 years. She's 8 years old. So it's just a fun way to kind of lighten up practice a little bit, create that family environment, you know, especially when some of the freshmen are homesick and they miss their dog, or if they have a bad day, they can just come hang out with Darcy. She usually cheers them up, but she is very good at practice. She knows our routines. The team always loves to do like this high five line, which we can't do this year. After they throw, it just kind of sets the tone, and I always give them a hard time about it because I'm like, why do we have to do that? But Darcy will inevitably get in that line every time, which is a little ironic because they know how much I don't love it. And then she gets in there.
Dr. Z, how many coaches here on campus have dogs? We had Hannah Still, our tennis coach, right? She talked about Homer, and she showed us he was napping in the background when we interviewed her. We have Darcy here. Do you know how many other coaches on campus have dogs and bring them to practice? No,
but because you asked that, you know, the next Zoom call, every Tuesday, we have a leadership team call followed by the head coaches call. And I actually enjoy those. I look forward to them. Yeah, I really miss group meetings. You know, no one loves meetings. But for me, they're social. That's how you bring a family together. And I hope Coach sees this. Once in a while, they're real serious and intense, but I generally try to lighten them up a little bit. And I think the staff's kind of moving along with that they're not just always intense meetings. And so once in a while, we'll go around the room and or the screen and talk about different things. So, Coach, remind me this next time. I want to have people go around and talk about their pets. I want to know that as well. I guess well over half have dogs. I mean, that seems to be, I don't know, the case in folks I'm friends with, but not everybody's a dog person. You got a few cat people out there. I won't go to offend any of the viewers. You know, at one point, our family had over 9 pets, so we covered all the from lizards to guinea pigs to chinchillas to dogs to even ducks for a while. You know, that's another story. But
Hey, Jen, real quick, but before we let you go, tell us about the connection between the softball alums and the current players in the program, and why is it so important for our softball alums to still be involved in our program?
Sure. I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. Of course, I love, the wins and the championships and the NCAA appearances that we've had, but I have an outstanding group of alum. And I think I've been fortunate to be here long enough, as you said, 14 years to develop some relationships, but even the players that I didn't get a chance to coach through the years and through different activities that we've really tried to bring them back and cultivate them and do different things. I just have such an awesome group. I've been to their weddings. I've watched them have some children along the way, and it's awesome. I think those are some of the accomplishments that I get more excited about. So each year we usually have homecoming and we have the huddle, which is a big event for us. I think we fill the room usually every year, and I know everyone's really disappointed we can't do it this year. But we also have an alumni game the next day, and that's usually our first chance to kind of introduce some of the players to some of the alums and watch them get to interact, and they usually like to give me a hard time with the kids, and just makes everything more family-like, and it's part of our culture that we talk about. And then I just have so many that come back to the games or follow us or send messages, or that I can say like, hey, can you talk to this player? Like, you did something similar. They're having a hard time with this. What advice do you have for them? And they'll call them, they'll meet with them. I'm just tremendously lucky that our culture just exists and continues to exist when they leave school, that they want to come back and they want to give back and they want to know what the kids are doing. Each year we do our trips, and they're awesome. I can give the whole team a list of players, and whether they're in a spot where they just graduated and they're donating $5 or $10 to a spot where they're working out in the real world, they always remember what it was like to do the fundraising and remember what it was like to go on those trips, and they always take time to give back. So my group is awesome. They already know why it's important, but I don't mind reminding them every once in a while to help out, but it's usually I don't even have to ask.
It's a perfect way to end our Coach's Corner interview. That's Jen Starek, who is the winningest softball coach in UNH history, and tied with Jen Fallon for the longest tenured coach here at UNH on campus right now. Jen, thanks for being with us here on Coach's Corner. We'll see you soon.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
You bet. And Dr. Z, as we wrap up here real quick with Coach Starek, as you mentioned, she wears a lot of hats, and from the sound of things and what you say, she wears them all well, because everything that she does, as I said, her players really care about her, and you can see the impact she's had on our campus and our program over the last 14 years.
What I would finish by talking about is what she just did, and I was glad you asked that question at the end. One of the really neatest things about her program is the alumni interaction. We have several teams who are really good at that, but hers would be, without naming some of the others here, at the tip of the spear in terms of alumni interaction, give back, etc. We know that if we're going to have a huddle or we're going to have whatever, you can count on the softball alums to be there. And so while I know in this particular Coach's Corner there are going to be a number of the alums watching, I want to thank them for that, because that's really a special part of this program.
Absolutely. We thank all of our alums, especially our softball alums, for their continued support of the program. And again, our thanks to Coach Jen Starek for joining us here on the Coach's Corner edition of the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast. First of all, thank you very much for your generous donation of $100,000. The other part of you joining us here on Charge On is your challenge to everyone who's watching. Please tell us about the challenge that you're laying down for everybody else.
Join me with your belief in women's athletics and how you benefited from women's sports and how we can pay it forward to the next generations. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Join me.